Dear people out there, you may have heard about the political crisis in Moldova unfolding these days. You may have even heard about large protests on the streets, or about a new government, or even two governments, an ousted president, or about some weird decisions by the Constitutional Court. If you did, there is a chance you may have heard it from sources offering biased, simplistic, or merely poorly informed interpretations. And this happens even to serious media institutions. Let's take an example. BBC published today that an interim pro-European president in Moldova replaced a pro-Russian one and called snap elections. While this is not fake news as such, it is for sure a misrepresentation. We'll talk about what is really going on in Moldova. But first, who are we? We are Occupy Guguță, a non-partisan citizens' protest movement for democracy and human rights in Moldova, engaged in a permanent protest against the authorities' anti-democratic abuses during the last years. So here's what you have to know about what is happening in Moldova right now. A little bit of context. Moldova is a captured state. State institutions, including law enforcement, justice, and even constitutional court, are under the control of one party, Democrat Party, or even more precisely, of its leader, Vladimir Plahotniuc. This man is a big-time crook, involved in huge financial crimes, responsible for the dire situation of our people, as well as an aspiring tyrant. He uses blackmail, bribes, and threats of criminal prosecution to subdue institutions, his rivals, and critics. A repressive state system was built, unaccountable to the people, unresponsive to the critiques of the foreign partners, and serving the narrow interests of Plahotniuc and his party. And this system, in order to survive, was selling the image of a pro-European regime. 2 days ago, less than 3 months after parliamentary elections, two opposition groups with different ideological views agreed to form a majority and break down DPM's rule. A new government was voted in, and the president appointed his former runner-up Maia Sandu as prime minister. This coalition of former rivals agreed to put aside their disagreements for the time being. They designed and started to implement an action plan with the goal to take back the state and institutions out of the control of the oligarch. This was a direct challenge for the regime. The system's backlash was immediate. A constitutional court composed of former DPM members has immediately called the parliament illegitimate, cancelled the appointments, and substituted the president with the former prime minister. There were even pseudo-protests in Chisinau. People serving in state institutions were brought, mostly against their will, to pro-DPM rallies to represent the people. Hours were paid to attend. In other words, the Democratic Party refused to give up power and resorted to all its resources to pretend they are still in charge. What happens now is that there are two parallel realities in Moldova. One in which we have a new government set to bring the state under people's control, and a make-believe phantasmagoric reality presented by the Democratic Party. They use a captive constitutional court to say they are the legitimate rulers of the country, accusing their rivals of treason or whatnot. This message is then spread around by a media empire under the direct control of Plahotniuc through fake protests and paid internet trolls. It's a pity when someone takes this seriously. In the real reality, former PDM Prime Minister Philippe is not an interim president, as the BBC calls him. He is a puppet of an anti-democratic coup. Moreover, even though BBC calls the Democratic Party, Pavel Filip and his allies, pro-European, this is simply not true. And the EU knows it. Due to the DPM's government's poor democratic and human rights record, the EU has cut its financial assistance to Moldova. But again, what is currently happening in Moldova is not about pro-Russia or pro-EU. It is about bringing basic democratic institutions back into people's hands. This is what the Moldovans wanted and voted for. And they are being deprived of this by a corrupt court that has no right to claim itself constitutional anymore. This court is a surrogate of DPM. 4 out of 6 judges have been appointed in a matter of few days by the DPM and its system before the elections. One of the judges is even closely related to Vlad Plahotniuc. For 5 years, the court has been not only an interpreter of the constitution, but a very active writer of it, and a very bad one. A political player engaged to support just one side. The last days, it went even farther by adopting very fast legal decisions. On the day the parliament convened, outlawing the parliament's decisions even before these were published. To sum up, there is a legitimate government mandated by the people and wanting change, and a fake one backed by corruption and deceit. We count on international visibility and solidarity, but covered in an accurate way. Thank you.